Hi, I'm Clint Baker with Sherwin-Williams here at the Reno Training Center. And what we're going to do today is look at our Formula Express color retrieval system and learn about all the different color tools available to help us choose the correct color formula. We're also going to look at our Prospector color tool and see how it can also help us choose the correct color. This is our Formula Express computerized color retrieval system. You'll notice that in the top box the cursor is flashing, asking us for information. We're going to enter a color code 382E, hit go. This is going to take us to different qualities of paint to select. First of all, it asks what brand of vehicle we're dealing with. We've got a Buick Regal we're going to select. Okay? Select the paint quality. And now what we've got is a bunch of information that popped up that showed us alternate colors. In order for us to best select these alternate colors, we need to start out with color chip location and visually look at the color chip in comparison to the car. When we click color chip location, we're going to start with the standard. The standard is denoted by the pound sign. It tells us that it's in color chip source 7-2-06, and it happens to be chip number 4160. Here's a representation within the Prospector color tool of what that standard color looks like. What we would now want to do is hold this up to the portion of the car that we're going to refinish and evaluate the car to decide if this is a blendable match or not. If it is, we need to go paint the car. If it's not, we need to continue with our color tools to see if there's a better color choice available. Other choices that we have listed here also have some chips available. We could certainly look at those as well. There's 4 different ones that we have chipped that we could look at. Another source we have beyond that is here with our alternate color description. Within our alternate color description, there's a couple different things we want to make note of. First of all, there's a verbal description on the color face. What it shows first of all is the standard, and in this case alternate A says that it's dark and clean. It's got 2 things listed. It lists it by importance. So the most obvious difference with alternate A is that while looking at the face, it's got a dark appearance on the face. When evaluating the second option, it says that it's clean. So alternate A has a dark, clean face. With the flop, it just denotes it as being lighter. It could give 1, 2, or perhaps 3 notes, depending on if it really makes a difference or not. In this particular case, lightness on the flop is the only thing we need to take into consideration. Now let's just pretend for a moment that when looking at our car, we decided that it was dark and clean on the face and it had this lighter flop. You'll notice that we have 2 options that show that. Both A and C say that it has those descriptors. Dark, clean face, light side tone. Another thing we can use to help build a case for the correct color would be to look over into the messages section. In the messages section, we also put in verified to VIN number information. So if you look at the 10th and 11th digit on the VIN, you can see the letter and number and see if that also is helping to build a case for the color that you've chosen. All right? If we continue further down on Formula Express, we're going to notice 3 individual graphs in 2 separate boxes. These very closely represent the finger paint exercise that we did earlier. it shows a graph with lightness, saturation, and hue. We always represent the standard in the center of the graph, and we show how the relationship of the alternates are in comparison to it. In our example today, we mentioned that A and C were the alternates we were considering. It shows that alternate A is definitely darker than the standard, but alternate C is much darker. The other thing to take into consideration with this color was saturation. We said that it was cleaner. And in this particular example, both A and C have just about the same amount of saturation in comparison to the standard. So there won't be much difference in the alternate color there, definitely when compared to how much difference there was in lightness. Hue was not even a factor in this particular color because it wasn't listed in the color description. Over on the flop, the only thing we were concerned with is that the alternate needed to be cleaner, or excuse me, needed to be lighter. So as we look at the standard in the middle again and look at alternates A and C, we can see that they're both much lighter than what our original standard formula was. All right? So the lesson learned from these graphs is that the most obvious difference between alternates A and C is not the flop, because they're very similar. It's not the saturation. The most obvious difference is that alternate C has a much darker face. The last thing to take into consideration when using the computer graphs is the history graphs. These charts represent the past history of formulas selected. This is based on the prior 12 months mix history. In this particular case, standard shows as being much higher than any other color. That is primarily due to the fact that most painters and stores mix the standard color first, which would definitely skew the numbers, making standard the most popular color chosen. From there you can see it could vary, but once you look at this graph, just take it into consideration to help build a case before. You would not want to use this graph as your primary source for choosing an alternate. Even though alternate F has got no history that shows enough to represent 1%, there's no case built that says that that might not be the color that you would need. So to review what we've learned today, we learned more about our Formula Express computerized color retrieval system and all the tools it has available to help us select the correct color formula. We also learned more about our lightness, saturation, and hue graphs and how they've got the alternate colors already plotted on there to help us understand color space.